Senator Rex Patrick, thanks for joining us on Flow.
Good afternoon.
You've had something to say about this ban on Australians coming back. Could you just set the landscape for us first? What is the federal government actually saying the law will be when it comes to returning to Australia?
Well, the government has passed a regulation, in fact, more accurately, the Health Minister has made a regulation that prevents Australians returning from India and basically imposes a criminal penalty if, in fact, they attempt to do so. The regulation is one that actually only stands until, I think it's the 27th of May, so it's very short term.
Yes.
But it does impose penalties under the criminal code.
Yeah, and is it only India at this stage? Or I thought I picked up there was a mention other countries could be included in this type of ban?
At this point in time, as I understand it, the regulation only applies to India.
Yep. So when it comes to this proposal and the concept that you're an Australian citizen and you want to come back to Australia and the government says that's a crime, what's your view on that?
Well, my view is that the role of the Australian government is to help Australians in difficulty overseas, not to criminalise them for trying to come home. In some sense, this is a sledgehammer being used to crack a nut. There are a number of different ways in which Australia can control entry into the country, imposing requirements on airlines, for example, that doesn't involve putting someone in a situation where, in desperation, they attempt to get home and find themselves locked up in jail.
Is it somewhat of an admission by the government there's issues with our quarantine system, the hotel quarantine arrangements? Does something more need to be done? I know Labor's been saying they want the federal government to step up using its constitutional powers on quarantine. Does this ban sort of signal that maybe they do need to do more on quarantine?
Well, there's a couple of things that are revealed through this particular regulation. One of them is the fact we don't have the capacity to deal with the number of Australians wanting to return home. The second aspect of that is that noting that there are particular strains of coronavirus the government are worried about, perhaps we don't have intense quarantine centres that might be able to deal with those sorts of circumstances. We've been in this pandemic for well over a year now, and one can look and say to the government, why haven't you sorted out this quarantine? The other aspect of this, of course, is the failed or unhelpful delays in the rollout of the coronavirus vaccine.
Yeah. So when it comes to this regulation and this criminalising of coming home, is there a capacity in the Senate to hold that up or to throw that out?
Well, the difficulty with this is that the regulation itself expires in a very short time frame. So the Senate only meets for budget week. I mean, there is a possibility that someone could move a bill and disrupt the order of the Senate to try and remove this. My understanding is that the COVID committee will look at this particular measure, but the regulation itself raises a number of constitutional questions as well, which means that if someone were to be trapped by this regulation, there may be a challenge in relation to its lawfulness.
We'll track that with interest and appreciate you speaking with us about it today.
Yeah, thank you.